Welcome to our community church, Unitarian Universalist. I'm your worship associate today, Amy Holtkamp. And even though none of us were imagining we'd be back with virtual services in the new year, it is a joy to have you here. Thanks for joining us online today. So who are we as community church? We are a progressive, open-minded, and inclusive religious community. We welcome all who are on a spiritual search for truth and meaning. Ours is a faith in action as we do the work of social justice and elevate compassion in our quest to live ethically, recognizing the inherent worth and dignity of every being. Please check your weekly email for announcements. Today we are delighted to welcome CCUU member Sally Jackson back to the pulpit. The first part of Sally's life was spent trying to fit in as the male that she was assigned at birth. Along with participating in numerous sports, she played trumpet in any musical group she could find, string bass in the ones that didn't need a trumpet. She had numerous careers, from carpenter's assistant to teaching at a junior college, from retail sales to professional photographer. Life in the same city and the same church for 57 years could explain why so many different careers, from music, teaching, photography, retail sales and management, business owner, writing for trade publications, poet, novelist, and radio talk show host. Shortly after moving to New Orleans, Sally joined this community because it was so accepting. It was an easy fit as she had just transitioned and a lot of other churches were not so open to transgender members. She had been observing different ministries for over 40 years as a professional musician and photographer. CCUU was different, truly welcoming, not just tolerant. This was a place to belong. She has served as the board president, member of the choir, is currently part of the tech force, music ministry, worship ministry, nominating committee, as well as part of the ministerial search committee. So we welcome Sally. We're so happy to have her in the pulpit today. And now we will begin our worship in earnest with the call to worship.
Oh, that's better. Now my glasses don't fog up. Okay, here we are. It's January 2nd. We're a day late for the new year. It's a day after New Year's Day, and I suppose for most it's either too late to make their resolutions, or sadly they've already been made and broken well before noon. That's what we're going to be pondering today, or maybe just thinking about, musing about, or even joking about. Satire is a great way to teach as long as everyone knows what parts are satirical. We've lived another year in the pandemic. The virus continues to mutate and evolve through its many variants, and we did so much more than just survive. No need to just brush those accomplishments away and make so many negative resolutions. I call them the Shelt knots. Let's instead plan for the additions in addition. No need to abolish the good things, just augment them, and realize that by concentrating on the good, the bad tends to be pushed to the back of our minds rather than getting forced on the negative. Keep that thought in mind.
It is Community Church's custom to light a chalice, invoking hope and eternal truth to our worship. Please join us at home in singing "We Light This Flame." We light this flame to affirm the light of truth and knowledge and the warmth of love and community and the fire of hope and commitment. And now CCUU's Religious Education Director, Cynthia Ramirez, will join us with the words for all ages.
Happy New Year, everyone. I'm going to read to you the newest poem by Amy Gorman, the wonderful young poet who spoke at Joe Biden's inauguration. It's a brand new poem called New Day's Lyric. May this day we come together, mourning we come to mend, weathered we come to weather, torn we come to tend, battered we come to better. Tethered by the year of yearning, we are learning that though we weren't ready for this, we have been readied by it. We steadily vow that no matter how we are weighed down, we must always pave a way forward. This hope is our door, our portal. Even if we never get back to normal, someday we will venture beyond it to leave the unknown and take the first steps. So let us not return to what was normal, but reach toward what is next. What was cursed, we will cure. What was plagued, we will prove pure. Where we tend to argue, we will try to agree. Those fortunes we forswore, now the future we foresee. Where we weren't aware, now we're awake. Those moments we missed are now these moments we make, the moments we meet, and our hearts, once all together beaten, now all together beat. Come, look up with the kindness yet, for even solace can be sourced from sorrow. We remember not just for the sake of yesterday, but to take on tomorrow. We heed this old spirit in a new day's lyric. In our hearts, we hear it. For auld lang syne, my dear, for auld lang syne. Be bold, sang this year, be bold, sang time. For when you honor yesterday, tomorrow ye shall find. Now what we fought need not be forgot, nor for none. It defines us, binds us as one. Come over, join this day just begun. For wherever we come together, we will forever overcome. Thank you.
Our first reading, Why January 1st, is from an article I found on a page called Mental Floss. Okay, way back when the Romans had a god named Janus, he was the god of technology. He was the god of doors and gates and had two faces, one facing forward and one looking back. Julius Caesar thought it would be appropriate for January, Janus's namesake month, to be the doorway to a new year. And when he created the Julian calendar, modestly, he made January 1st the first day of the year. This also put the calendar year in line with the consular year, as new consuls took office on that same day. For Caesar, the Julian calendar was a political tool and weapon. As the Roman armies conquered new lands, the empire often gave its new subjects some freedom in retaining certain religious and social customs. After the calendar was created, though, it was used in every corner of the empire, not just for consistency, but to remind all citizens of Roman authority and Caesar's power. After Rome fell and Christianity spread throughout Europe, the celebration of the new year was seen as pagan. The Romans, after all, had observed the first day by having drunken orgies. So the first day of the new year was moved to a more agreeable date to Christianize it. Some countries started their year on March 25th, the day Christians commemorate the announcement of Mary that she miraculously was pregnant. Other countries used Christmas Day, December 25th. Others used Easter Sunday, no matter what date it fell on. Often this change only applied to the government's calendar. In common usage, January 1st was still the first day of the year, as a regular non-clergy, non-royal folks didn't see a need to change it. The calendrical chaos worked for a while, but a frustrated pope would put an end to it during the Middle Ages. An error in Caesar's calendar had caused the Julian year to become misaligned with the solar year, and by 1582, the difference had grown to 10 days. Over the years, the spring equinox, and with it Easter, kept getting moved up, and Pope Gregory XIII was tired of having to reset the holiday. Gregory devised a new calendar that used a single leap day every 4 years to keep it aligned. He also restored January 1st as the first day of the year. Most Catholic countries adopted the Gregorian calendar quickly, but the Protestant and Eastern Rite countries were a little more hesitant. The Protestants complained that the Roman Antichrist was trying to trick them into worshiping on the wrong days. The Eastern Rite churches wanted to maintain tradition, so some Eastern European countries kept the Julian calendar for centuries more. Russia didn't switch to it until after the revolution in 1917. And even today, the Eastern Orthodox Church still follows either the traditional or revised Julian calendar to set its liturgical year. Eventually, the Protestant nations came around and switched to the Gregorian calendar. Most, though, changed the start of the year well before they adopted the whole thing. England, Ireland, and the British colonies made January 1st the start of the year in early 1752. Scotland had already switched about 150 years earlier, but waited until September to fully embrace the new calendar. The staggered move was perhaps symbolic, bringing the government calendar in line with the people's before bringing the nation's calendar in line with the Pope's.
Community Church Unitarian Universalist is a self-sustaining congregation. Members and friends' generosity help us to do the sacred work of bringing justice, spirituality, and compassion to our community and beyond. You can give online at ccuunola.org/stewardship or by text at 504-370-2659, text GIVE. You can also send a check to CCUU at 6690 Fleur-de-Lis Drive, New Orleans, Louisiana, 70124. Thank you for supporting Community Church. Now is our sacred time of joys and sorrows. If you are online, please write your joys and sorrows in the comments section to be read aloud after our musical interlude. Thank you so much. right. Jim O'Neill asks for healing thoughts to be sent to Vera, who's experiencing muscle spasms in her back. Vera, we are sending you our best and hoping for a speedy recovery. I'm not seeing any other messages online. You have something, Cynthia? Okay.
I have a joy and sorrow. The joy is that I was able to spend time with my mother, quality time, but my sorrow was my two sisters have been diagnosed with COVID. I'm a little worried because they're both immune compromised, so I just want you to keep them in your thoughts. And another thing, on Friday, which is a joy, I'm going to meet William Shatner in person. So it's a glorious year.
Well, the immensity of that joy is one that we can all live vicariously through as Cynthia meets her hero. May we all meet our heroes in the year to come. I'd also just like to light a candle for everyone who is experiencing difficulty as a result of this latest surge of COVID, whether it is illness, the illness of a loved one, separation from your family, canceled plans. We hold you in our hearts. And I'd just like to light a candle of hope that the next year proves to be a blank slate full of reunions, togetherness, and maybe not a return to normalcy, maybe a journey to something even better. So with that thought, I pass over the microphone to Sally Jackson.
Isn't that fun to watch? Everybody come up here and taking their mask off. It's added entertainment. The second reading is the history of New Year's resolutions. I got this from a website that the History Channel runs. It says the ancient Babylonians are said to have been the first people to make New Year's resolutions some 4,000 years ago. They were also the first to hold recorded celebrations in honor of the new year. Though for them, the year began not in January, but in mid-March, when the crops were planted. During a massive 12-day religious festival known as Akitu, the Babylonians crowned a new king or reaffirmed their loyalty to the reigning king. They also made promises to the gods to pay their debts and return any objects they had borrowed. These promises could be considered the forerunners of our New Year's resolutions. If the Babylonians kept to their word, their pagan gods would bestow favor on them for the coming year. If not, they would fall out of the gods' favor, a place no one wanted to be. Okay, now the actual message today is simply called Why January 1st and Who Thought Up Resolutions. We've got a little bit of background in that from the readings, but as usual, I like to do my own total lack of research and just comment on the things that I think. Okay, this is the Unitarian Church. We're wanting people to think, right? So why not? It was Julius Caesar who, in all of his modesty and humility, created the Julian calendar and designated January as the beginning of the year. But that's not all he did to confuse the calendar. The Romans had always used a 10-month calendar, with the first 4 months having numbers instead of names, the final 4 months. Both Julius and Augustus Caesar wanted months named after them, but rather than just change the names of a couple of the existing months, Julius rearranged it all and did not change September to the proper number and make it November. followed by December, undecium, and duodecium. Now, this next debacle was adjusting the number of days per month. What to do to spread those days over 2 additional months? Evenly. Of course, this is Julius Caesar, a noted ruler, but not for the kind of ruler that is all about numbers. In my opinion, he just got frustrated and gave up. 7 months have 31 days, 4 have 30, and 1 has 28. Why not 5 with 31 days and 7 with 30? That would still allow the Caesar boys to have 31 days in their months. In their honor, we could have added the extra day every 4 years to them. In July, 1 leap year, and in August, the next. I know you're all sitting there thinking, enough with the calendar. Why January 1st? That was the actual question. That was the day that the new consuls took office. But why? Oh, great, you're answering a question with another question. Yes. Do you even have a theory? Of course I do. I'll even share it with you. After a little musing about why not march like the ancient Babylonians had done. It makes perfect sense. It is in the spring a time of renewal. That's when seeds are planted in a true beginning. But in the readings we learned about how January 1st was set at the beginning of the new year in the Julian calendar. The Julian calendar. This is fun. I touched the wrong part of the screen. Okay. The Julian calendar coincides with the consuls taking office. Why then? It's the middle of winter. That's the very reason why. Most activities and entertainment took place in open arenas and amphitheaters. Who wants to sit in the cold and snow while watching gladiators battling to the death or various people being thrown to lions? Obviously, those are events for more temperate weather. It was a good time as any. There were no other pressing business like planting or harvesting crops, and when your troops are wearing sandals, it's not a great time for conquests. So let's celebrate the new year with about a week or so of orgies. It seemed like a good idea, and Romans were always up for a good extended orgy. If Julius had made the new year come in March, he might have made it past the Ides of March. Would Cassius and the gang have had enough time to plan such a high-profile murder while planning a week-long orgy? Of course not. Remember that Caesar's assassins were leaders in the Senate. They couldn't get away with killing the empire's leader and throwing a less than spectacular orgy a week later. Orgies were a major part of Roman life. Now for the resolutions. We move backward in time from the Roman Empire back to the ancient Babylonians, who not only started the resolutions, but also set the tone of making up for everything that might have gone wrong last year. Paying off debts and returning anything borrowed, the very foundations for correcting bad behavior as the basis of New Year's resolutions. Let's explore the possibility that the Shelt knots may in fact reinforce the bad habits. How many of you have gone to an art museum with the express purpose of touching some art? Signs that, it's just that you see a sign that says, "Do not touch the art," and that's what put the thought in your mind. You don't walk down hallways wanting to touch the walls unless they have the "Do not touch wet paint" signs. The signs that simply say wet paint have fewer fingerprints in the paint next to them. Think about it for a minute. Were the no food or drink in the theater signs put up to keep the venue clean? Or to plant the idea in your mind that you can't wait to purchase some overpriced food and beverages during the intermissions? It has so much to do with the old forbidden fruit analogy. If I can't have it, it must be better than what I am having. It's always been successful in getting young people trying everything they could think of to get alcohol, cigarettes, and access to movies that were deemed too mature. It would be reasonable to assume that it would apply to making negative resolutions more difficult to keep. When you have resolved to give up or quit something, every time you avoid that particular something, you end up feeling deprived, when you should be feeling good about keeping the resolution. The obvious way to avoid the shalt not trap is to select resolutions that are more positive, because they're easier to keep. That's not the real reason to make resolutions, just to make them hard to break. Having a bowl of ice cream every day would be an example. I could manage that, but it seems like cheating. I would like to make a little comparison here to Lent. During the Lenten season, Catholics are supposed to make a sacrifice and give up something they like for the duration. It is intended to be difficult and a sacrifice, so the negative of removing something is appropriate. After all, it is done to acknowledge the sacrifice of Jesus, not for himself, but for all of mankind. I have a friend who made an interesting twist to just giving up something for Lent. He decided to make the sacrifice beneficial for others. Very appropriate to the reason for making the sacrifice in the first place. And it could be applied to New Year's resolutions just as easily. He is more than just a bit of a clothes horse. So for every day of Lent, he goes to the closet and pulls out an extra piece of clothing and puts it in a big box. At the end of Lent, he donates the box to a charity that needs clothing to distribute. It's not really that difficult, and it does help others. I suppose if you want to make it more daunting as a sacrifice, you could distribute the clothing each day in person. There is the danger that you might select someone who looks like they're in need of clothing but is offended because they thought they were being stylish. Everyone doesn't have a huge closet filled with so many articles of clothing that they can give them away, especially not every day for an entire year. It would require an adjustment once a week would work. But the main point is to make your resolutions with your physical and financial limitations in mind. So many resolutions are doomed from the start because they sounded good at the time, but they were well beyond our capabilities. Resolutions are basically goals that we set for ourselves and need to be treated as such, because missing a goal equates in our minds to failing. Most people aren't actually sure how to deal with failure. It could and should be a learning experience, but most of us can't beyond the term failure. I'm reminded of a bit of the philosophy of Steve Martin, who cautioned us to set attainable goals by starting with small goals and making them harder with each completed goal. Mr. Martin set his goals in order to become the omniscient ruler of the universe and then maybe go to Paris. You might want to arrange your goals a little differently. Some people have money to donate to charities and could make their resolution like they pledge to their churches, a specific amount each month. Some people have time and special skills to donate, helping with organizations that build, repair, and haul things for the needy. Some of us are lacking in the physical ability to do some of the work that they know how to do. I would love to help out with a few of my skills from the past, but I have to remember that I'm not capable of walking around a construction site with my bad knees, and lifting the materials for drywall work requires not only strong legs, but strong arms and back as well. So look at your own capabilities. I do have an ability that a lot of people my age do not. I can drive a car at night. I have let my friends know that if they need rides to doctor's appointments or the store, to let me know, and I will come get them and drive them wherever they need to go. In my age group, we have the mobility impaired, visually impaired, as well as people without cars. Some people don't like to drive for any of the above reasons and live alone. I want to make it clear that giving someone a ride to lunch is a nice thing to do. It doesn't really count as fulfilling this resolution because I like to eat lunch, and having company is also very nice. I don't have a preset goal as to how many people I need to help or a quota per month or year, just help when it's needed. The idea of resolutions to me should not only be to try to be a better person than last year, but also to make the world a better place, at least within your sphere of influence. If you can walk, join in on the marches for causes that you support. They go on most of the time in this area. But maybe you want to start a little closer to home. You could serve on one of the ministries of our church. Maybe even a board position. I mention that not only because I am on the nominating committee and might be reaching out to you sometime before June, but because it doesn't require you to go search for someplace where you can be of help. You're already here. I'm on several ministries here besides the nominating committee. As you heard, I serve on the worship ministry, the music ministry, the ministerial search ministry, and the tech team. If you are saying to yourself, I'm not a musician, I'm lost around technology, and I'm not comfortable with the thought of being a worship associate, we have so many other ministries. Interested in social justice? We have a ministry. And you will find that we are contacted by so many organizations that need our help. There will be some that match your specific skill sets. You have more opportunity to make changes in the world than you might think. Let's start with something really simple. Mask. For those of you who don't remember what they look like, this is a mask. I know we don't see them very much. Very shortly, we will be celebrating, if that is indeed the proper word, the beginning of the third year of the COVID-19 pandemic. Due to the extremely contagious Omicron variant, we're back to virtual services only. I'm speaking to the bare minimum number of people required to hold this service. Seems familiar? It should. We've been here before. There's an easy way to avoid doing it again. It requires cooperation and advanced preparedness. Resolve to continue wearing your mask and social distancing after the guidelines are relaxed again. That's right, do the things that are proven to slow the spread of the virus even when they are no longer mandated. Why would anyone want to do that? Well, because we had made a great deal of progress after the vaccines had been distributed, but we rushed to reopen. Mask mandates were lifted and everyone just went back to what they had done before for about a week. Then the numbers started to rise and mandates were reinstated. This actually happened more than once, and many, if not most of us, saw the latest spike coming. We had the double whammy coming, holidays and a new variant. And holidays mean that people want to get together with friends and want to engage in all of their holiday traditions. The numbers spike a little in the it jumped on me again. Okay, but due to the beginning of the third year of the pandemic, okay, we've got all that. The numbers spiked a little bit after Thanksgiving. Okay, everybody went back together, but then we also moved on to the more holidays. People getting together with friends and celebrating another Christmas and even higher numbers after New Year's. Choice is simple. Lose the mask immediately and get ready to close down again and keep the mask for a few years and finally be done with it. I'm going to suggest something for a possible New Year's resolution. That this occurred to me on my way up here today. I'm not taking off my glasses to look concerned. I'm just not reading anything anymore. So you want to do something to make your little corner of the world a little better? Let's start with something really simple. On my drive up here, I noticed how very few people get in the proper lane before they turn. So if you're going to make a right turn, let's do it from the right lane, not the left, and vice versa. And when you come to a place that has two lanes that turn right, if you need to be in the outer of those lanes so you can get to that immediate exit, don't get in the center and try to cut over in front of somebody. It's just making it difficult for everybody. These are simple things. That doesn't even require much thinking. There are even signs painted to show you where to go. So follow just simple guidelines of things you can do to make life better for people around you. You may not think it's a big deal, but to somebody, it'll become a very big deal if they're not paying attention when you do it. Okay, that's just an observation from today. But we do have, I don't think, just a resolution to make the world better around us. I think we have an obligation to do it. Because if we don't, who's going to? Somebody has to start it. Why not us? I think keeping the mask at least 3 weeks beyond the end of the mandates would make such a marked drop in the number of new cases that people wouldn't even believe it was possible. I got that from an epidemiologist. There's a mouthful. But if we just think about other people instead of ourselves, instead of making a resolution like my I'll have ice cream every day resolution, that'd be great, but it doesn't help anybody unless you manufacture expensive ice cream. So I would just ask you to think of things you can do to change just areas right around you. What can you do that'll help somebody else? It's not that hard. Like by giving people rides. That really doesn't take much time. It's not that difficult. Driving is easy for me. I don't have to walk. But if we just did those things, we might just be able to keep some of those resolutions. Okay. That's the end of the message. And I now have a benediction for you, which is going to sound similar to everything else you've heard today. Because it is time to choose between resolutions and living your life to be the best of your abilities. It's the start of a new year, and most people like to think of it as starting over. It's a nice idea, a clean slate, a tabula rasa. But it infers a level of failure in the last year. Let's go out into the world with the goal of building on all of the good things from the past year. There were good things last year. We each individually as well as collectively did good and amazing things in this past year. Let's concentrate on those things and try to improve on them, to amplify them, to include them in our daily routines. But most of all, enjoy life. It is our greatest gift of all. Namaste, shalom, go in peace.